You want to know how to start a presentation properly? Well, I've got some answers to that. If you've been to my Unleash Your Message seminars or workshops or keynotes, you know that I go through an entire module on how to properly start a presentation. Generally speaking, you should never start with a thank you or a formality, nice to be here, good weather we're having. My absolute pet peeve are people who start with something like, good morning. And the audience usually says nothing the first time around, so they feel like they have to fire them up, so they'll say, good morning, again. And finally the audience plays along and they yell back, good morning. And it's just usually pretty awkward, and it's not the most dynamic thing that could come out of a speaker's mouth. The first thing that comes out of your mouth should always engage the audience in some form. There are different ways to do this. You could start with a question like I did in this video. Do you want to know how to open a presentation properly? You could do it with a quote. My rule of quotes, though, is, of course, make sure the quote is relevant to your presentation and you can refer back to it or integrate it or it reflects the theme of your presentation. Don't just throw quotes out to be witty or smart. You can do it with a powerful statement. I sometimes start my motivational talks with, disability is a state of mind and not a diagnosis. Or you can just start right in the middle of a really cool story. You can either take the audience into the middle of it, like, there I was, sitting on the subway, an old man next to me, or something like that. That is not an opening for one of my speeches. Or you can just be any sort of story that you really think is going to be powerful and gripping, and you tell it very well. No matter what, those first words out of your mouth should be engaging, and they should really lead the audience into your presentation in some way. Now, a lot of times I get the point, or I get pushback saying, well, we have to thank the audience. Why don't you want us to thank the audience or thank the meeting planner? I'm not saying don't thank people. I'm not saying don't give formalities when they're appropriate. Just don't lead off with it. Don't make the first words out of your mouth be. For my friends in Toastmasters, my absolute pet peeve is when people start their speeches with, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. First words out of their mouth or early on, and it just doesn't fit. Someone asked me, well, can you use these formalities? What if you were addressing the Speaker of the House or you're in a political situation at the United Nations? Okay, if you're at the United Nations, you might want to lead off with members of the UN or honored dignitaries or whatever. I've never spoken to the UN yet, so I'm not an expert on speaking to the United Nations. But I think in that case, it could be appropriate. I still think you're better off starting with a statistic or some sort of statement. 60% of the world is in poverty right now. Members of the UN. See where it's going. Engage them with something to think about. Then you can address them later. For Toastmasters, break the habit. I know in competitions we're supposed to use fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. There's a myth that you would sometimes get docked in your competitions if you don't say that. So most of us, including myself, slip that in. But find creative ways to slip it in. Watch the World Champions of Public Speaking and you'll see that they all found a creative way to work it in. They never let off with it, and they always integrated it almost conversationally into their presentation. So just remember, when it comes to opening a presentation, engage your audience through a quote, through a story, through a powerful statement, through something creative. And when it comes to formalities, you can have them in there. You can thank the audience. You can thank the meeting planner. You should thank them at some point. Just don't make it the first words out of your mouth. If you do this, I guarantee your presentations will be more powerful. They'll be more memorable, and you'll have a lot more fun on the stage.